AMD could be leveraging an MCM GPU design for their next generation RDNA3 graphics cards, which could be a huge game changer for them, and that would make them go head to head against Nvidia's MCM Hopper GPUs. Let's discuss that in this video. Hey, if you enjoy content like this, drop a like, make sure to subscribe, and smash that bell so you never miss another video. Hey, what is going on guys? Danny here, welcome back to the channel and I hope you've all been doing well. Just a couple things before we jump into the topic of this video, the Ryzen 9 5900X. A lot of testing has been done with the CPU, lots of benchmarking. You guys should see a video review for the CPU in the near future. I'll be comparing it against my previous generation Ryzen processors like the 3900X and 3800XT, so that'll give you guys a good insight on how much of an improvement we're dealing with and whether or not you guys see the upgrade is worth it. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that. I think you guys will appreciate the data. Second thing, there will be some more follow-up content pieces to that. I've also been playing around a lot with the new PBO2 curve optimizer, and it's a really interesting method of overclocking, so that will be something that is explored after the review has gone up. Alright, so on to the topic of this video. There have been some rumors which have surfaced on the internet surrounding AMD's next generation GPU architecture, RDNA3. This was reported by video cards who are sourcing a hardware data miner and patent leaker. The first is a statement coming from Kepler_L2 on Twitter, who states that Navi 31 is a 80 compute unit chiplet, and the top SKU has two of them, meaning the top graphics card SKU will have two Navi 31 chiplets for a whopping total of 160 compute units. Now, with all rumors and leaks, take it with a grain of salt, and with information in regards to Navi 31 or RDNA3, this is all still very early information. As of now, AMD haven't even given us any indication as to when they'll be announcing RDNA3 or Navi 31, so if we were to go off their recent roadmaps, perhaps we can expect to hear some stuff officially from them by late 2021 or early 2022, which is quite a ways from now. But remember, roadmaps are always subject to change. As for the rumor itself, this isn't surprising to hear. Ever since Zen 2 and Rome, we've had this attitude or tone set from AMD that chiplets are the way of the future because of the benefits the design can bring. We first saw it with Zen 2, how they were able to make multiple strides in various aspects of computing, such as scalability, performance, efficiency, value, and more. And since we're on the subject of MCM and chiplets, AMD have a set of working products being sold to consumers right now that are based on an MCM or multi-chiplet design. They've got working products, so this isn't a new territory for them. It's just a matter of how they can take this multi-chiplet design approach and integrate it onto the graphics cards. Now, backing this rumor is a patent which was posted on Twitter by a patent hunter under Fox 3, where they have found documents which pertain to a synchronization method for MCM GPUs and second generation AMD Radeon arrays. More on the second later. Now, as always, all of the sources will be linked in the video description so you guys can read the info for yourselves. This patent gives us some more information on how MCM GPUs will work, how they'll be able to handle computational tasks, and we can even see a layout of the various execution blocks within the GPU chiplets. In the fourth picture, we can even see that there are 4 chiplets, with each one containing 2 compute unit blocks, cache, controllers, and scheduler units. Similarly to how there are core chiplets in a desktop Zen 2 or Zen 3 processor that have multiple cores and a cache block. As for how this will all translate to actual performance uplifts or performance per watt will still remain to be seen, and it's hard to say just how much faster the next generation flagship will be over, say, an RX 6800 XT. Remember, this is just a patent, and companies file patents all the time for various products, some of which may never even see the light of day. One thing is clear though, and it looks like that AMD is finally ready to explore the next step in the GPU space with the MCM designs. If you recall, recently I posted a video late last month talking about Nvidia's Hopper architecture, which is also supposed to be leveraging a multi-chip module design. I feel like AMD and Nvidia will both be working on some game-changing designs here, instead of just trying to pack as many stream processors in one large monolithic GPU die, relying on smaller manufacturing node shrinks while ramping up power. This is then going to allow manufacturers to be very flexible with their designs. Imagine where you have a GPU with 4 chiplets, one which will handle all your traditional shader counts, that will handle rasterization, another chiplet to handle real-time ray tracing, a third one for AI and deep learning capabilities, and the fourth one being an I/O die. We could see huge performance per watt increases, large leaps in real-time ray tracing performance where your FPS isn't cut in half when you enable it, and a image enhancer without sacrificing any performance at all. We could see some revolutionary stuff here, which is exactly what the GPU market market needs, as the last few generations, if you ask me, haven't really been all that exciting. Sure, we saw some stuff like RTX make its way to gamers, but it's not something that I would say is a must-have feature or something that revolutionized the market. In fact, most of the traditional rasterization performance increases we've seen have been kind of minor, and it wasn't until this past generation where we saw a leap in performance, but that was because the generation before that was so underwhelming that there was already a huge gap. So people were comparing these new generation GPUs to GPUs that came out back in 2016, and if you actually think about it, that's not all that impressive. I remember a couple of years ago, there was an interview with AMD's David Wang, who's the Senior Vice President of Engineering at RTG, and he mentioned that MCM design was something that they were looking into for GPUs, but at the time couldn't conclude if this was something they'd actually bring to gamers. Although now, with these recent rumors and the discovered patents for AMD's RDNA3 Navi 31 GPUs, it does look like they're ready to finally take that next step for the GPU market. And yeah, this will probably be targeted towards the gaming market because it's an RDNA3 GPU. If it was pertaining to CDNA, which is the compute division for the graphics market, then I'd say that perhaps this is not going to come to gamers, and we will only see this in the server and the enterprise market. So it looks like they're ready to finally take that next step. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, which will mean that, both AMD and NVIDIA could end up rolling out GPUs to the market that will leverage MCM designs, and we could see some really fierce competition then. Now, circling back to the first rumor, they mentioned that because the top SKU will have 280 compute unit chiplets, totaling for 160, that is double the number of CUs than the RX 6900 XT. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be double the performance, because performance unfortunately doesn't scale linearly with CU count. I will say just seeing that though basically reminds me of what NVIDIA did with Ampere, where they doubled the FP32 shaders, which seems like a move to kind of counter that. Adding on to that, there was a video recently posted by another YouTube channel called Red Gaming Tech, and they claim to have some more information surrounding AMD's next generation RDNA3 graphics cards. I'll link his video down below so you guys can watch it for yourselves, but some of the main takeaways from that video are that he mentions his source telling him about an MCM design. There will be significant changes made to the geometry pipeline. Remember what I said about the second gen Radeon arrays. A bold performance target at 2.5x the performance of RDNA2, which will be facilitated by higher IPC improvements and higher clock speeds, and that AMD should also have an answer to NVIDIA's DLSS. Obviously, I'll say it again, grains of salt. However, the information presented here isn't as wild as it seems, especially the claim of RTG targeting 2.5x the performance of RDNA2. A few months ago, there was an interview conducted over at TheStreet.com with AMD's EVP Rick Bergman, who said that in regards to the aggressive performance per watt targets they made for RDNA2 over RDNA1, they will continue to have that same level of commitment moving forward with RDNA3. Remember, RDNA2 is twice the performance of RDNA1. This is a pretty bold claim here, and at the very least, we should see AMD giving us another 2x performance increase, the way I see it, which when you look at the numbers now, say for example in RX 6900 XT, which is already a monster of a graphics card and performs quite well at 4K, so imagine seeing a GPU deliver twice or 2.5x the performance of that. It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it, but perhaps with an MCM design, something like this could very well be achievable. And that, this will finally push 4K gaming to the mainstream. Because right now, even with the top SKU models, some games are just actually really hard to run, especially when you bring in effects like ray tracing and all that. I recall back when first gen Ryzen was launching and we started to hear all these rumors and leaks about how AMD was going to bring 8-core and 6-core CPUs to the mainstream that could match HEDT Broadwell CPUs in performance. There was so much doubt in the air, and people were saying stuff like how it would be impossible for AMD to make such a stride, but hey, with multiple core complexes and the Infinity Fabric, they made it happen. Not implying that this will indeed happen again, but we have seen stuff like this happen before, so I won't immediately dismiss the bold performance improvement claims. As for ray tracing performance, I'm glad that this was brought up, and in the patents there is also another section which talks about a special command processor implemented in the pipeline for ray tracing. As of now, NVIDIA is far ahead of AMD when it comes to ray tracing performance. At best, AMD's RX 6000 performs like Turing in ray tracing scenarios, which, isn't terrible for a first attempt, but Ampere is significantly faster, sometimes offering over double the performance. Now, as I've said before, I don't see ray tracing as as a must-have feature yet. It's also dependent on what kind of games you're playing as well. For example, I don't see anyone really using ray tracing in competitive FPS titles where a higher frame rate is a priority. But say in a single player game like Cyberpunk, which looks really good with RTX on, I can see it being utilized because, that's just a single player experience. You're not competing or doing any sort of competitive gaming there. But it's being adopted a lot more into games, making it more prevalent than when it first came out, and I don't think it's a market that AMD should ignore. Along with that, while ray tracing is performance tax heavy, that's where NVIDIA's DLSS can come into play. And DLSS is a feature that I'm a huge advocate for. It's a serious game changer. When you're able to play at higher resolutions with effects like RTX on and maintain a smooth experience, or if you just want to, have crazy high FPS, then go for it. And while most reviewers like myself who benchmark on an even playing field with, DLSS and RTX off, the reality is that if someone is able to use DLSS with their NVIDIA card, then they will definitely be able to experience a significant boost in FPS. And that's just a huge advantage for NVIDIA, which is why I'm wondering why we still haven't even seen an answer from AMD yet about their super resolution tech. I guess perhaps it might be something they will just roll out with the next gen hardware. So the future definitely holds a lot of exciting hardware for us, but like I said in the beginning of this video, it's still quite early, and the other thing I wanted to mention is that we're still just coming fairly recently off the RDNA2 and RTX 30 series launch, and stock and supply for those graphics cards is still ridiculously bad. Who knows how long it'll be before the market comes back down to earth and supply normalizes. It's kind of sad that we're talking about next gen hardware while people are still struggling to get their hands on a current gen RTX 3080 or RX 6800 XT. But I guess that's just the world we live in now.